How's it going, garden people? Welcome to the Hidden Gardens. It's time to finally start some planting. So I've gotten all of the weeds situated up in these front yard garden spaces, and it's finally time to start picking out all the plants that I've accumulated over the past year or so and the summer, as well as a big garden sale that just occurred. I picked up a whole bunch of plants then. So it's finally time to decide which plants are going to go where, and the goal is to get as many plants as possible planted into the ground in these front yard garden spaces. But first up, I got to take a trip down to the garden center to get some supplies, some much needed mulch. And mission accomplished. So I was able to stop by one store and grab a pretty garden bench that I'll put together at some point, as well as I couldn't resist picking up these pretty coleus since they were fully grown and really nice, and the ones that I grew from seed didn't do too great, but these are really pretty, and I'll probably put these in like a little fall container along with some grass that I have. And then, of course, it was meant to be with this Royal Raspberry Agastache, so I couldn't help but pick this up while I was at the garden center. I placed the few plants that I had already set that I knew that wanted to go up front, and then headed out back to grab more plants that I think I want to put up in these front yard garden spaces. So shopping the backyard. And this Temple of Bloom is getting ready to do its thing, which is really pretty, so that's exciting. And I just spent most of the first day just placing plants around the property. After placing the plants, the next step was to pull up the plants that aren't going to be staying, such as these Russian sages that are just not doing well in this spot. So I'm going to pot these up and see if I can pull them out of their funk, and if I can, then I will find a better place for them. And I finished off the day by putting together these little solar lights and putting them by the shed, and I have to say that they fit absolutely perfectly. And the next day, I'm ready to plant all the plants, so I grabbed all the supplies that I was going to need. Labeling, of course, is important. I do use a garden marker over any other marker because it helps resist the sun. I also am kind of strategic about how I place the tags so that they're not facing like directly into the sun and kind of hidden from, all the direct sun and any type of like weathering. And I also grabbed my kneeling pads, which are essential, digging tools, some biotone in that green tub right there, biotone starter fertilizer, and of course my gloves, and some pruners just in case. The first day I spent really kind of looking around and placing all the plants, and not all of them might make it into the ground, but I definitely am trying to fill the spaces around the whole front garden areas, because the more it's filled, the less weeds that I'll have to deal with, number one, but also the fuller it'll be and the prettier it'll be. Even with all the plants that I placed, I still have quite a bit of few blank spots, though I do want to make sure that I'm giving a little bit of room for things to kind of grow in, and I'm not smashing things too much, but I may still have placed some things just a little bit too closely, but time will tell and we'll see, and then we'll just have to rearrange and re-edit and move things as needed. But These whole front garden areas are majority perennial plantings, and we need a moment for this Snow Fountains cherry, weeping cherry, because it's beautiful. And as that gets bigger, it'll start shading out the plants underneath it, and those plants will need to change. And that's really gardening, is going with what you got and then changing as you go. And that's probably one of the funner parts for me anyways. The conditions here in my Zone 7 garden have been really, really dry throughout the summer, as well as the spring going into the summer. So we've definitely had some drought conditions going on, and the plants are definitely showing that wear. I'm also spending a lot of time hand watering, so I'm going to have to work on some drip situations at some point in the near future, at least getting some type of a plan in mind so I'm not so much of a slave to the watering situation if drought conditions are really going to start to be more of a norm in this type of area. Usually we're more humid and do get quite a bit of rainfall, but this past year it's just been really, really dry. So even through all the weather conditions and watering woes, it was definitely a nice summer to have here in the gardens, and all the plantings for the most part do seem to be doing fairly well. It's just about the end of summer and school's about to start, so before I have to disappear into the house under piles and piles of laundry and preparing the kids for school, it was definitely really, really nice to get out here into the gardens, check things out, and get things planted as much as I possibly could. And ready to roll. I've got my coffee, and we're going to start off in the front yard wonderland space over here in the very front entrance over by the road. And I realized fairly quickly that I was going to have to not only take out this blue kazoo spirea because it's just not thriving. It's very pretty, and I like how it looks with the weeping red bud, but it's not doing the greatest in this spot when it comes to the hot afternoon sun that this area gets hit with. I'm going to replace it with this standing ovation variety of grass, and I think that that's going to do quite better. It still has the bluish coloring throughout most of the season, and then in the fall it'll get a really pretty reddish type coloring tinge to it. And it also matches the grasses that I do have up by the entrance part of the garden as well. So again, still going for the balance throughout the garden in certain spaces and repeating in different spaces, so that hopefully it does have more of a cohesive look in the end. Of course, I realized that these silver mound Artemisia were going to need to be moved around a bit, so cross your fingers. Hopefully I didn't kill all these plants by moving them around a little bit. I think they'll be all right. They're pretty resilient type of plants, and as long as I keep them well watered, I think that they'll be okay to bounce back. I probably should have cut them back, and I may still, but for today, as far as trying to make sure I had the spacing right and everything, I really just kind of transplanted them, moved them around, and made sure that I was putting them in the right spots. If they don't survive, then I will just have to pick up a few plants, try to divide them, and pop them in next season. But I do think that they'll be okay. It is late enough in the season where we don't have any more really, really hot days going on. So again, as long as I stay up on the watering and make sure that, things don't get too fried, I think that they'll be okay. I realized after the fact that I forgot to put the biotone starter fertilizer in the hole with the plants, so I'm putting it on top here, but for the most part I put the biotone in the holes, and I did remember for the rest of the planting, but for that one at the very beginning I forgot and put it on top and watered it in, and hopefully that'll all work its way down into the soil and be just fine. And as I continued along, of course the sun was out, so putting up a nice little umbrella was definitely helpful to keep the sun off of my back and also keep things just a little bit cooler while I was getting all of these plantings done and moved around. And I was going to go with this pink Malahi grass, but after looking at the situation, I changed my mind going in and decided to go on a little bit of a smaller grass and decided on the Prairie Winds Brushstrokes grass. So I continued along down this whole strip here, and I watered and mulched as I went and spent the day pretty much just rearranging this whole front little area here, adding the grasses, moving around the silver mound Artemisia, and just kind of enjoying the gora that is behind here. I did end up moving that as well. I pretty much just kind of moved and fussed with this whole front little area here. So cross your fingers that things kind of do well and bounce back. There is a butterfly weed that grew, I believe it was planted like before we even moved in, so that's been there for a while. I will take that in fall, hopefully, and move that, because where it's taproot, those don't really like to be transplanted very well. I would like to move it to a better place because it's just smack dab in the little front there and not the best place for it. But I wanted to leave it for whatever butterflies might need it for this season at least. If you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back and coming along my journey. I definitely appreciate you. And you know that I've been dealing with bunnies and these blue hollies in my front yard. When the winter time hits, the bunnies get hungry and they just devour these poor castle spires and the Castle Rouge blue hollies. So I've ordered the baskets to protect them over the winter, but I also decided let's just go ahead and replace them with the taller plants that I have out back, and hopefully that'll kind of aid in not only giving me bigger plants out front, but then they'll be taller so that the bunnies can't reach the tippy tops at least. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing so that you can follow along as the garden changes and does all its things throughout all the seasons. And you can see how these plants do. And hopefully I'll be able to inspire you a little bit to continue along on your gardening journey, whatever that looks like for you. Whether you're a gardener or a reader or a painter or whatever your passion is, hopefully along your gardening journey, I inspire and help you push on through and get what you need to get done as much as you can. I fussed with the walkway stones just a little bit over the winter. That's definitely a winter project, is to pull up all the stones around the garden, make them obviously straighter, but kind of pull them up a bit. Maybe pay attention to Bruno and address Bruno's issue, the walkways, the grass, as far as whether I'm going to do mulch, do grass again, or, stone would be ideal, but of course expensive. So we'll see what the winter holds as far as the walkways are concerned, but definitely I do want to get to the stones around the garden areas and just shore those up a little bit and make sure that those are more defined and more where they need to be. And that's probably the best part, is that I am able to kind of pick them up and move them. Like if I really wanted to, I could make these pathways smaller and the garden beds bigger, but I probably won't do that. But over on the sides here, I'll probably move them around a little bit as well. So we'll see. We'll see what the winter projects will hold. But I was definitely glad to get as much planting as I possibly could into the ground. I hope you'll stay tuned for part 2 as I continue along. Maybe give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I hope that this video inspires you to continue along on your gardening journey, whatever that looks like for you. And thank you for coming along on mine.